Good evening. I will call to order the May 6th meeting of the Issaquah Development Commission. Tonight we will be considering the application, excuse me, the application from the Issaquah School Board, and the agenda for the evening will be that we'll have an approval of minutes from a preceding meeting on March 4th. And then the agenda items will be addressed. There are 4 separate items that will be addressed tonight in this meeting, all of which have to do with the Issaquah Middle School Master Site Plan and the Site Development Permit. This meeting will take the process of a presentation by staff, follow up by the applicant, and then public comment, and any members of the public that want to make a public comment. We ask you to sign in, please, and then when you go to the microphone, to identify yourself and give an address, and it can be a business address or a home address, whatever you choose. After that, the commission will make its decision regarding the final status of the items that we're addressing. So, with that said, we will turn it over to Amy in the city. Thank you.
Good evening. The purpose of our meeting tonight is for the Development Commission to review 4 items that were remanded by the City Council Land and Shore Committee regarding the Issaquah Middle School Master Site Plan and Site Development Permit. So a little background to how we got to here. Back in February 18, 2015, the Development Commission reviewed site improvements, building design, and construction phasing for the middle school. At the time, we submitted a draft SEPA determination, and this was what was considered by the Development Commission. And at that meeting, there were 3 outstanding items that the Development Commission referred to the City Council, and these were the blank walls, the traffic study and mitigation, and the final SEPA determination. So on March 12, 2015, the Land and Shore Committee considered those 3 items, and in addition to that, staff brought to them a new information on the parking on Southeast Evans Street. In addition to those 4 items, we also clarified the information regarding the wetland buffer impacts of the expanded bus yard. If you recall, there was a public comment about the wetlands, and at that time, I've actually responded to the comment. However, the information we were basing our staff evaluation was not the most updated information. So a little background for the sake of the audience, especially those who did not see the first presentation. The site for this new middle school is going in basically in what is currently the Issaquah High School and the Clark Middle School campus. And the proposal basically includes 131,000 or almost 132,000 square feet of classrooms and other additional spaces. And in addition to that, there's going to be a new softball field and a new track and field / football field. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go and move this forward. So the first item that was discussed at the, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that during the Land and Shore Committee meeting, basically the committee remanded those items back to the Development Commission. And so the first item was the SEPA review, and as I mentioned earlier, the version of the mitigated determination of non-significance that was presented to the Development Commission was a draft version. And based on the comments that were received by the applicant during that particular meeting, they actually updated and revised their MD&S. And this is what was then considered by the Land and Shore Committee and what was used for the actual published version. The bullet points here basically takes you through the schedule and the sequence of the milestones for the SEPA review and determination. So I'm just going to jump to the second bullet point where it talks about how the draft MDNS was revised, which is I mentioned earlier. And there were two items that was reflected in that draft. And that includes the bus yard improvements and the wetland buffer impacts and mitigation. Your staff packet, the staff memo packet includes basically a comparison of both the draft MDNS that you received during the first meeting and the new version with the new text highlighted. And then after that, the applicant, which is a school district, also basically who served as the lead agency for the SEPA review, went ahead and published the final MDNS for SEPA comment, and the appeal period ended on March 25th, 2015. So we are here today basically knowing that basically the SEPA review is completed, and during that time of the comment and appeal period, the Issaquah School District received one comment, and that comment and the response from the school district is also included in your packet as Exhibit 17. Just very quickly, that the comment was, The comment basically focused on the need for additional safe pedestrian access or connections for the school from 4th Place Southeast. This is one of the residential streets just north of Southeast Evans. So the school district responded to that, and after working with city staff, we have arrived to a reasonable solution by providing an additional walkway on the east side of 4th Place Southeast. Currently, there's already a sidewalk on the west side of 4th Place Southeast, which is primarily what is used for accessing the school from this neighborhood. So having considered all the comments and completing the comment and appeal period for the SEPA, staff recommends that the SEPA review and MDNS be sent forward as part of this permit. The next item is the transportation impacts and mitigation. So this is just a review of what condition we included in our staff report and which was accepted by the Development Commission at our last meeting. I'm not going to read through everything. I'm just going to emphasize that this acknowledges that we required the applicant to provide an updated traffic study, and that we will identify the appropriate and proportionate traffic improvements to mitigate for any impacts that are determined through that traffic study. So Sheldon Lin is here to talk more about that updated traffic study and where we're at with the analysis and the assessment of the mitigation.
Thank you, Amy. My name is Sheldon Lin. I'm the Director of Public Works Engineering for the City of Issaquah. And as Amy mentioned, the school district was in the process of updating a traffic impact analysis report at the time in which the Council Land and Shore met. And so the issues of transportation were referred back to this commission for its review. And the report analysis has been complete, and 10W consulting firm is the one that did it on behalf of the school district. And the city had requested that 2 phases be analyzed for its impacts. One was the full build out which includes the site plan that Amy was talking about, which is over here on the project site where the middle school and the high school are going to coexist when the project and the MSP is fully implemented. The full build-out includes taking the Tiger Mountain Academy and the Clark Elementary and moving it over here to where the current middle school is. And so we felt that it was important to evaluate the full build-out conditions because bell times may change, traffic patterns change, things of that sort. The other phase we requested that they evaluate was the interim phase. And the interim phase is when all 4 schools are operating here along 2nd Avenue and no schools are operating over here where the middle school is while they're doing the remodel in preparation for moving Tiger Mountain Academy and the Clark Elementary over there. Out of that analysis came a series of impacts which were identified in the transportation report. One of the first impacts that came to light was the impact at the intersection of Sunset and 2nd Avenue. At this intersection, it was identified that there would be a need for a traffic signal. The next intersection was the intersection of Front and Sunset. That intersection had an increased delay associated with it, associated with the reconfiguration and shifting traffic patterns from the school district in the full build-out condition. So the city has a capital project listed for that intersection. The school district wasn't driving 100% of that impact and need for improvements there. And so the city is working to, with the school district on its proportionate share of those improvements. Next on the full build-out condition is at the intersection of Front, Clark/Newport Way. Due to some changing conditions with bell times, traffic patterns associated with middle school and elementary school, there was a substantial delay at that intersection associated with the new school activities. And part of the mitigation for that is they have to do some improvements along Clark on the east leg of the intersection to accommodate the traffic coming out onto Front Street so that it doesn't impact the operations of that intersection during peak hours. So mitigations were identified for the school district to do improvements to address the delays coming out on Clark Street, which would impact the operations of that intersection. Lastly, at full build out, staff identified and the report identified a potential for the driveway entrance on Southeast Evans due to some circulation potential issues with parents maybe not dropping off at the right place or entering at the right place. There's a potential that some traffic impacts could occur on Evans Street as associated with the use of that driveway. And so the district and the city are working on operational changes for the school district so that they can minimize the potential for that to happen on Southeast Evans. And so it should function well. Those were the impact areas that were associated with the full build-out analysis, as well as the identified mitigations. On the interim phase, where everything is operating over here, all 4 schools on this one site, the analysis identified substantial delays coming out on Southeast Evans, wanting to turn left or right onto 2nd Avenue. And so with that, the potential is there to develop a right turn dedicated lane and a left turn dedicated lane coming out on Evans so that the queue doesn't back up on Evans Street, and it'll operate much better that way. There's not a lot of pavement to be built or anything like that, and the school district is looking at doing some striping improvements to create 2 lanes coming out, as well as continuing the 1 lane coming in. The other interim impact was the double left turns coming in at the signal at the high school that's currently there. The queuing analysis showed that it could possibly pass and exceed the length of the turn pockets that are being constructed. The amount of mitigation that would be required to rectify that is probably not warranted for an interim period. So the school district and the city are working together to develop an operational and transportation demand management plan to ensure that the backup doesn't exceed the queue lengths that are constructed as part of this project. Because the project is planning on extending the existing double queue for the left turn in any case. These were the impacts at full build-out and interim that the analysis showed, and the arrangements and how we're working with the district to resolve the impacts and mitigate them. And with that, I will give it back to Amy. You want to go to the next slide? Okay.
Amy, if I can just make a note, I missed the approval of the minutes, so when the staff presentation is over, we'll just go back and do it then. Okay.
Okay. You want to do this? I'll let you. Go ahead.
So just to wrap up this part of the presentation, regarding the transportation impacts and mitigation, we wanted to, I'm just bringing back the same condition that I showed earlier, and the staff recommendation, which is basically to forward the permit as presented, and with no change to condition S1. So now I'm going to talk about the blank walls. This is the same slide that I presented at our last public hearing. It identifies all the blank walls for the different elevations or facades of the building. And then I'm going to walk you through each of them. This is the main entry to the school. And the blank walls were primarily at the gym. And the lower elevation shows you what is the proposed revision. It's showing that they will be providing basically a seating with a change in the texture and material for the seating area, and this will also have a canopy as a weather protection. And this will serve primarily to provide some place for the children to sit and wait while their parents, before their parents pick them up. So the next elevation is the north elevation. In this case, we have two blank wall situations. The red one is the primary one that's visible from the street, and they are proposing basically extending the window elements further, and as you will notice, it is primarily focused on the pattern of asymmetry that was basically established because of the roof. And unlike all the other blank wall mitigation, you will notice that this has a very different approach, and primarily because we were looking at this as an element that you will perceive and experience from Evans, and normally you wouldn't be standing right next to this wall because this is closer to the service area. And then for the, on the left side is actually the service dock. And so part of what they're doing is making the, as you can see, there's a bright yellow sliding metal door there. So part of the solution is to make that fade or blend in better with the masonry material. And later on, I'm going to show you another side of the service dock that we identified. The other issue, or I shouldn't say issue, the other consideration for that section is that it's actually further back from Southeast Evans, and there will be a layer of parking right at the edge of Evans and the property line, and also basically a buffer of trees. So that loading dock area will not be as prominent as even this side of the building. So on the west elevation, this is the area where there's currently an open, it has a roof, but it's an open basketball court. So originally, this was where I had suggested ideas about maybe installing some sort of a school mural. What they're suggesting is actually what I consider something better, which is adding more basketball baskets and providing opportunities for impromptu play for the kids. And then the last elevation, this is the east, which captures the area where the school, where the faculty lounge is. And so for this, basically, it's showing that big wall over there being mitigated by, again, extending the window, what I'm calling the ribbon windows, and actually adding more windows to what is basically the food preparation area inside the building. And the blue arrow actually shows one of the blank walls along this edge, and they are proposing to provide some climbing vines. This area is a little trickier to mitigate with architectural features because the green grass that you see on the bottom actually represents an area where most of their mechanical equipment and other utility boxes will be located. So this is primarily a very utilitarian or functional area that to some extent it will be more practical not to have something that's architectural in this section. And the west elevation, oh, I'm sorry, no wonder, sorry. South, did I just, sorry, I am pushing the wrong buttons. Okay, there we go. So in conclusion, staff is recommending that that because the applicant has addressed all the this particular condition for blank wall mitigation, that we recommend that we delete condition C5. And this was basically the same image that's in your staff memo. The third item had to do with the Southeast Evans parking. And for this, basically, this is again the slide that I showed at the last meeting, and it gives you kind of an idea of what the existing conditions way back then. And if you guys remember, we had, or the Development Commission actually had some considerable discussion about the parking in this area and the challenges of monitoring and enforcing the no parking sign here. So in the process of trying to address, if you recall, there was also a proposal for the relocation of the existing Rainier Trail along the edge of this property. And in their process of trying to show us how they're going to do that, they also address the issue of parking. And that's through reconfiguring, instead of having parallel parking, they are proposing to have diagonal parking. And what it does is it creates one side that is clearly marked for parking, and because of the width of the roadway, it is basically hard or difficult for anyone to park on the other side of the road. And this is again the information that I presented last time regarding, just shows where the trail was going as an alignment. And at that time, and the only reason I'm showing this is because this builds up on the 4 conditions that I will be presenting next. The combination of the location of this trail with that diagonal parking basically allowed us to look at this more holistically. And one of the things that I wanted to remind the Development Commission is the condition that was crafted during that meeting, and I copied that text here. Basically, I highlighted the section or the sentences that calls the city staff to basically work with the applicant on the final alignment of the gravel path, and also for the city parks and recreation staff to have the ability to review the construction drawings of this trail during the site work or landscape permit phase of the project. So since then, we've actually walked the site. We've invited park staff to go with us, and the applicant's consultants. And one of the things that we had questioned at the last meeting is whether or not they were proposing the trail to be located in the right side of the roadway. And after walking the site, we basically understood why they were proposing that particular side of the roadway. And our park staff also concurred that for now that is the best location. So we recognize that in the future, when the new parking lot comes in, this trail location may not be ideal. We don't know the exact impacts until we see a future site plan for that parking lot. So for now, we are addressing the current condition, assuming that there's no new parking lot there. And with that, we are recommending 2 new conditions. One addresses the requirement for the applicant to provide a 10-foot wide public access easement for the trail. What you see as a graphic shows what's existing there right now. There is a 60-foot wide, that's a wrong number. It's a 60-foot wide public access easement, and it's shown as the blue line on the graphic. And that was installed as part of, to facilitate access for the Issaquah Sportsman's Club, and also for the trail, the public trail that's owned by the city. So in the process of city staff and park staff trying to understand how the future trail will be maintained, we recognize that it's important to ensure that we do have public access to that trail. And then for D24, condition D24 was meant to address further work that we need to look as we consider the final design and construction of this trail. Right now, we can't identify all the responsibilities until we know all the details, but this allows us to continue working with the school district to identify the various roles. And again, just a little background, currently, basically, the school district and our Parks Department staff shares the maintenance responsibility for the existing trail. Two more additional conditions. D22, regarding installing barriers or bollards, was actually something that our Parks Department staff requested. And D23, the highlighted texts are basically for the sake of our presentation tonight. And it basically addresses that future condition when the school district comes back with the proposal for a new parking lot. We would like to revisit the location, the design, and basically the future impacts of this parking lot on the existing trail. So in conclusion, the items remanded by the City Council to the Development Commission as presented at this public hearing for the Issaquah Middle School complies with the requirements of the Master Site Plan and Site Development Permit, and the community facility standards in IMC 1807.480, subject to the proposed conditions of approval provided in the staff memo dated April 29, 2015. And based on the submitted application and plans, the administration recommends that the Development Commission move to recommend to the City Council approval of the master site plan and site development permit for Issaquah Middle School, file numbers MSP 14-00002 and SDP 14-00001, as described and evaluated in the staff report dated February 18, 2015, and staff memo dated April 29, 2015, including Exhibits 1 through 24, and subject to the conditions as identified in the staff report, revised and added by the Development Commission in the February 19, 2015 recommendation, and as revised and added in the staff memo at this public hearing. This is a little bit more complicated than the type of recommendation you usually see, but this is our way of capturing both what was discussed and accepted by the Development Commission at the last meeting and also at this meeting. And secondly, direct the Development Services Department to revise the February 19, 2015 findings of fact and conclusions, which affirmed the Development Commission's decision to recommend to the City Council approval of the master site plan and the site development permit for Issaquah Middle School, file numbers MSP 14-00002 and SDP 14-00001. The staff report dated February 18, 2015, and this briefing memo dated April 29, 2015 will serve as the findings of fact. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. As I mentioned earlier, before we go to the any applicant presentations, we're going to go back and review, review and approve the minutes from the previous meeting that were included in the packet. Does anyone have any requested changes in the minutes, corrections, additions, deletions? So, is there a motion?
Chair, I move we approve the minutes as stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Minutes are approved. Right. At this point, if there is a member of the applicant's party that wishes to make any presentations to the commission, this is the time to do it.
Steve Crawford, Director of Capital Project for the Issaquah School District. I don't think we have anything that we would necessarily want to present at this point in time. Staff's done a nice job.
All right, thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a comment or ask questions?
Open the public hearing.
Yeah. So this constitutes, what this means is that the staff and the applicant have finished their presentations, and we're now opening the public hearing to public comment. Okay.
Thank you. David Kapler, 255 Southeast Andrews Street. Regards to SEPA, I think Mr. Rigos' concerns about fourth, whatever place I guess it is, was legitimate and is being addressed. That is good. The wetland issue, I think we've now settled down the concerns about that. There's still some concerns, and I'd like to see I wish the school district were doing maybe more than the minimal they have to do in terms of getting rid of the zinc covered fence and just how it looks and the need for new plantings and a mitigation of the actual wetland that's just across from the fence from their property, especially since it apparently were school district people that caused the fire in there, which did not which harmed the vegetation in that area as it was. Traffic mitigation, totally frustrated with the traffic plan here. I believe it encourages parents driving to school. Those kids get the nice benches to sit on, but the kids waiting for the buses don't have that at their place. I think we're encouraging automobile delivery of students and pickup of students over bus. The district should be paying extra for that when we do the mitigation, because they're going to be increasing the traffic at all those 4 points that were shown earlier. And I don't like seeing school district money going to extra traffic. The blank wall, it's kind of like the sky bridges at Costco. It took way too much time, in my view, dealing with it. But anyway, it's a lot better than the Formica type stuff that's all over the high school, so I'm fine. Parking and trail. We do need, it's nice to have a trail in front of where the cars are going to be when the kids do this angle parking. They can then get out of their car and walk on the trail to where they're going to go to the school. That's a safety improvement. But people are not going to use that trail. They're going to continue cutting in just north of those softball fields, come in through that gravel parking lot, and then connect with the trail on the north side of Evans. They're not going to go around that area, and it's just not going to happen unless the district decides to put a fence in there to block that, which would not make sense. So I think we'll just having that there for safety for those kids that are doing this angle parking, which is going to be kind of crazy when all those kids are coming out at the same time, backing out. I don't know where they're going to go. There's no simple U-turn area back there. I'm not sure how they're supposed to turn around, or if they think they're going to back all the way around so they can be then headed westbound, perhaps. But I think it's going to be a problem. When that high school parking lot is figured out, we'll have a lot, there needs to be a lot done with that. And hopefully there's enough requirement in the master site plan for thorough evaluation and study of that future parking lot, and hopefully retention of some trees. The 2 parking spots is a joke. And the process has been a real concern here. Basically, the district was issued a clearing and grading permit, even though they put a different name on it, would be prior to approval of the school itself and the master site plan. Because they're a school district, nobody's raised that much fuss, but this is a terrible precedent set, and we need to not be doing that in the future. And the school district, I don't know why this went from 2014 to 2015, a whole year to get an extra story on the building. But we need to have a process that's working better. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak?
Aye.
My name's Connie Marsh, and I have a store at 1175 Northwest Gilman Boulevard, Suite B11. I also live in town. So the transportation demand management plan is unclear. I don't understand what success would be and when it would be required and what components would be required with that language, because it just cites some examples and it says it could be something like this. And to me, that does not address the significant issue of basically encouraging people to drive to school and for parents to drop off their kids at school rather than taking the bus. It's clear that this is going to be a difficult site for walking and riding your bike, and the buses sort of seem to be subjugated to the back because the will of the people is to use their cars. If you're going to have a transportation demand management plan, it needs to be required when? I don't know the answer to that, but there needs to be criteria. And then what are the problems that it is attempting to solve? Because that's why you have a transportation demand management plan, is you are trying to solve a problem. But that problem is not clear, is it? So I think that language needs to be changed, and I don't know exactly who wrote the language. There you go. Invasive weeds. It sounded like the city and the school district have been responsible cooperatively for the maintenance of the trail. And, you know, I've maintained the trail for about 10 years, and I stopped 2 years ago because I just can't stand it anymore. So the other day when I was working cutting broom on Lake Tradition Plateau, I had a woman come up to me and show me a picture of the Scotch broom behind the high school, saying, wow, you're working up here, why aren't you working down there on that trail? Look, I took a picture of how bad it is. Have you seen this? And she showed me the portion of the trail that I gave up maintaining 2 years ago. And nothing changes. I'm the one who is maintaining the trail, so I don't understand still who's maintaining the trail. Someone needs to. But I don't know that the language that you have provided will actually make it happen, because there's nothing saying if no one does maintain the trail, what will happen. The public easement that was drawn, my recollection is that it's actually a 60-foot public easement that we could have used as a road for the southeast bypass. So I don't exactly understand how we're going to have a public easement section on top of what is already a public easement. I think it's a power easement of some sort. And I have one other story, and then I'm going to conclude with a thought. I was up there and walking the dog and having a happy day, and I came out and saw the clearing and grading. So basically, I threw a stink fit because I was not expecting that. But while I was standing there watching all the high school students using the gravel road, it was a traffic jam. There were 2 inches between each car. They were going 2 miles an hour. And that was just with the cars being able to park freely. I don't understand how the backing up is going to work with that, because there was no room or space, and these are high school students. So I don't think high school students are good at backing into lines of traffic. At the same point in time, the sweeper was moving along, and the kids were trying to get past, and the gravel was flying, and I thought to myself, the road needs to be paved. And I haven't seen anywhere that this road needs to be paved. I think that needs to be a condition, because there's going to be so much traffic, and it's going to be this supposedly nice corridor, and right now it just kicks up dust, it kicks up rocks. I was ducking. So I would like to have that added as a condition, if this is going to be used for high school parking, that the road be paved all the way from where it's not paved now, around the corner past the gun club. The conditions are a little bit better for what's going to happen to the trail in the future. I don't like the placement of the trail. I think it makes it a much worse trail than it is now. Very noisy, right by the gun club. But you've heard all that before, and you've seen my comments before, and I hope you can remember what they are, because I'm sort of disheartened. I hate coming to the meetings and feeling like it's a done deal. It's frustrating to have it go into basically construction before we have the public hearing, and it made me not want to come at all. And you know me, I'm here, and sometimes I'm grumpier. I'm really, really grumpy with this one. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that cares to speak tonight? Member of the public? Okay. Yes, please do, and then when you get up to the mic, give your name and your address, please.
All right, my name is Leif Steffney. I'm a Issaquah resident on 385 East Sunset Way, and I also work up at the Issaquah Sportsman's Club. The couple things I just wanted to address, some others have already said it, but I want to restate the same thing, is that the parking situation for the high school students up on the gravel road up towards the range, we deal with problems there every day that we're open. I still maintain we need emergency vehicle access up there, and often the way that students have parked in the past, and currently it's being enforced a little bit more, but we've had problems with students parking all the way out into the road to points where we can't get a fire truck up there in case we needed one. Now, like I said, they've worked on it, and they're talking about the angled parking, which I have the same concerns as the others about the angled parking, being that we already also have issues with students almost hitting. I've been hit multiple times almost by students, almost hit by students. I have many customers that, same thing, almost get hit by students pulling out. A lot of them speed up and down the road, do burnouts, donuts, and understand they're high school students, you know, they're letting out things like that, but it's a hazard. It needs to be addressed. The other thing that I wanted to then mention here was same thing that Connie had mentioned about the gravel road. It always gets torn up from students doing donuts, tearing up and down the road. And it's also just very heavily used by, customers of our range and students. And I don't know how often we have had to contact the city to re-gravel the road, and it's always a huge hassle, unfortunately, to get someone to come out and do that. It gets really bad. Currently, it's held up actually since the last time they've done it, but I know it's only a matter of probably another month to where we have huge potholes. A lot of customers at our range complain that they don't want to drive down the road because it's just so bad. With students now parking on both sides of the roads, we're forced to drive through deep potholes when they're there. And we've also, for a long time, thought that it would be probably in everyone's best interest to pave the road, which would long-term keep costs down for the city, which has to now currently, for years, they've been just re-graveling. Why not just do it right once? And then we just don't have to worry about it anymore, especially if traffic is going to get heavier up there, and we're already doing a bunch of construction. Let's just pave it. That way students also, not only will it be a better road that doesn't need to be constantly maintained, but a paved road is not going to be as inviting at all for students to do burnouts, drag racing, drifting. They do that on gravel roads. We all know it's easy to do that on a gravel road, and people think, oh, it's not a real road, and that's where we can go goof off. If it's paved, then we're not going to see as much of that. So that's all I had to say here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to comment on the record before we proceed? If not, we will close the public hearing aspect of the meeting, and we will now go to give the individual commissioners an opportunity to ask further questions, seek clarifications, so on. Mr. Soa, do you want to start, if you have it?
I think my concerns have been addressed. I was really concerned about the diagonal parking on Evans. I also don't see how that necessarily is going to create enough room because people are going to back out through across two lanes of traffic, I guess. It just doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't seem like a viable plan. That's it.
Commissioner Brennan?
I guess on that same point, a couple of comments, both from the public and then just from me regarding that. So I don't know that I quite understood from looking at the staff information about how circulation will actually happen with parking and where they turn around and how the logistics are going to work getting people in and out of that road and parking when they're coming and leaving school. So if you could maybe explain a little bit, maybe the drawing, you could bring that drawing back up and explain a little bit about what are the logistics look like, trying to get those students in and out of those parking stalls and down that road going the other direction?
And if I could add to Commissioner Brennan's question, if you could take into consideration in this explanation the traffic from the Sportsman's Club, which is part of this equation. It's a factor in the equation. So if we're going to address this, and I think we should, as he said, let's include that factor in the equation.
I'm going to have Steve Crawford respond to that, since they'll be responsible for making sure that all that circulation works on a day-to-day basis.
So currently, students are parking on both sides of Evans. There is adequate space for single-car parallel parking on either side of Evans and a minimum of at least two 12-foot travel lanes in between. So the roadway is wide enough to provide for emergency or any other vehicle access. As you have cars parked headed eastbound on the south side of the road, they're going to currently go up and they're going to make a U-turn at the intersection and head back out. Cars that are parked headed west currently drive up the road, make a U-turn, and find a place to park headed westbound on Evans. So the diagonal parking consolidates the parking to one side of the road, provides for marked wheel stops, provides an opportunity for the school to assign spaces if they so desire, provides for a walk path on the south side of the road so there's immediate access out of the cars on the side of the road where they're parking, and that leads back into the school campus. That trail also provides for a relocation of the existing section of the Rainier Trail that currently goes through the middle of the school campus. That trail is about, at most, 6 feet wide. In a lot of places, it's 2 or 3 feet wide. It currently passes between 10 to 20 feet away from the existing upper high school parking lot, passes between the building and the tennis courts, and connects up to the trail at the south end of the campus. A trail, a public access trail running through the middle of the campus is no longer a viable option based on safety and security. So we've proposed to relocate that trail from the point where it connects to Evans with a crossing, concrete crossing, follow back around, head back south. This is really currently the alignment of the trail that was been in place when the school the Issaquah High School campus was under construction. So again, it's a little bit bigger picture, but this is the current alignment of the trail along the old railroad crossing, right down next to the parking lot where kids have been parking forever, down through adjacent to the softball fields, discus cage, tennis courts, and connecting up back south. So it does represent a relocation of the trail. There's more trees adjacent to the trail in this location than there are over here, and then it connects back up to the section of the trail. This was the location where there were 2 gravel parking spaces proposed based on previous public comments. I think the reality is that there's not a lot of trail access and use during school hours. So the diagonal parking that'll be available along Evans represents a pretty significant addition of available parking for users after school hours and on weekends.
One more question on the parking count. So currently we have parallel parking both sides of Evans up in that segment. So with the diagonal parking, what's the delta between what's provided now in available parking versus what will be allowed for or provided for with the diagonal parking?
I think there's about 37 spaces here in the diagonal parking, and currently there's about 50 spaces in both directions parallel.
And what is the cross-section of the road? How wide is that?
You got 2 travel lanes and 2 8-foot parking lanes, so it's 24, 36. There's a 39, 40 feet. I've personally measured it all the way from one end to the other and painted lines in to help guide the students because we effected a change over spring break. So I know personally that there is space for parallel parking on both sides and two minimum 12-foot travel lanes.
Thank you.
Again, I want to make sure I get the numbers. So you said approximately 50 parallel parking spaces now, and so you'll be reducing it to 37 with the diagonal. Okay.
Well,
According to your drawing, there's 34 existing spaces,
Okay, 30.
18 on the north side and 16 on the south side.
Okay.
And that the plan that you proposed has a total of 37. 29 on the angled in and then 8 along the side.
Well, my error in recollection of numbers. It is a little bit, I believe, a reduction in the spaces that currently exist.
you plan on marking the side where there will no longer be parking allowed? Is it going to be signed to
That would be
effect?
posted as no parking.
Mark, no parking now.
Well, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
Right now, after spring break, it's marked as parallel parking only on both sides of the road.
Okay.
And granted, there has been some issue in the past with students kind of helter-skelter parking. The school is aware of the fact that that is school district property and that they do have the ability to enforce that. And there has been some assistance with city police, particularly after spring break, and I know that there were some tickets issued today.
Commissioner Morgan?
Sort of a side question, I guess, with regard to the trail, the question that came up about why not have the trail go across on the north side of the softball field and connect if people aren't going to, if they'll continue doing that path.
I mean, continue through here?
No, I think Mr. Kapler was saying that people would, when they get to the north end of the softball field, would cross over and go north instead of going up and around, if I understood Mr. Kapler correctly.
I took that to mean that they would continue to cross and continue to walk through the school site in this old
No,
path
when they
configuration.
get to the softball field, I think, right there, they would, nope, the north end of it, they would
Right.
Travel this way?
cut through there. Is that correct?
There isn't really a trail there. So, so I guess we don't need a trail.
I don't know it well enough, so I don't know if again, if we're putting a trail that people aren't going to use, but is there a reason not to have a trail along there if it's one that's being used?
To my knowledge, there wasn't a trail there, and there are future plans for this portion of the property to be developed into part of the school campus.
Okay.
So it would be, in essence, a waste to develop a trail that's going to, again, run through the middle of a school campus.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The other item, the other item to add would be that, there are two aspects of using that. One is the trail, and the other is encouraging students to not walk in the road, but to
Right.
have a place away from the moving cars. So even if trail users are making the shortcut
Right.
that you identified for the students getting in and out of the cars, I think there would still be a value to have that trail in that
Right.
running
Because I
around.
was thinking you could have the walkway for the students and the trail, two different items. But again, if it's going through the school property and you wouldn't want to in the future, I can understand that. That's a side question, maybe this is for Sheldon, perhaps, the question about paving the road. And people suggested doing that, can I sort of hear the thought process about it?
Paving the road would help with the maintenance issues, with the gravel having to be replaced, regraded periodically. I understand the city does do that work when it's requested. By paving the road, it also would cause, additional stormwater issues that would have to be addressed. that haven't been looked at yet. So if the commission wanted to condition it to be paved, we'd have to evaluate stormwater conditions as construction permits come up and figure out how to address the stormwater issues associated with that runoff.
Thank you. And I guess I didn't want to infer that we know more about paving roads than, we're not traffic engineers certainly, but just wanted to sort of hear thoughts on it. So thank you.
And so I'd like to add a comment there that the area, in this area, is an area that the school district has planned to provide for future high school parking. If there's consideration of a condition that this road be paved as a part of this project, the school district will move forward with the paving of our own parking lot, and we'll just eliminate any parking in our use here. This is a 60-foot easement that was granted to the city for access and utilities, primarily to serve the Sportsman's Club.
So that was a question that was going through my mind. So it's not dedicated city right-of-way then? It's an
No.
easement?
It's an easement.
Okay.
The parking lot, that the build-out parking lot that we're talking about there, I absolutely understand that this question that I'm about to ask is futuristic. But there has been, as you know, there has been significant concern expressed about the number of students that are driving cars instead of taking buses, and the number of parents that are dropping kids off and picking them up and so on. And I'm just curious as to what it would take for the school, in terms of a school district program to encourage parents and students. Is there a possibility that you're not going to need that? Let's put it that way.
The parking?
Yeah.
That is a real possibility. We have a bond committee working on the future direction of high schools in the district. A primary question is, a part of that bond process is, do we build another high school? If we maintain our current Skyline, Issaquah, and Liberty High Schools, Issaquah and Skyline will grow to probably 2,600 students by the year 2020. If we are successful in the bond committee moving forward with a recommendation to build a fourth high school, we find property and build a fourth high school, both Skyline and Issaquah and the new high school would probably be about 1,600 students. And you would find that the population at Issaquah High School would diminish considerably.
And it's now?
A little over 21.
So we go from 2,100 to about 1,600 if the new school's built?
Yes.
In that case, what, in that eventuality, what would the purpose of that area be in that case, if it's determined that it's not? I'm just asking this question because we're talking about what's going to be done now as the next step.
We would probably look at that as something other than a parking lot, that if the student population goes down, the needs for the parking are diminished. We are faced with serious growth issues. That land is very scarce, very expensive. That area, including the section north of Evans up to the Sportsman's Club's south boundary, that's all school district property. Who knows what that might be at some point in time in the future.
Okay.
The likelihood is that at some point in time it'll get developed to support the population of students that continues to grow in the area, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school kids. I don't know.
Okay. Commissioner Morgan, did you have another question?
Not on.
Okay.
I've got a couple. In the traffic management part, you talked about the problem with 2nd Avenue and Sunset, new traffic, and then a new traffic signal at the intersection of Front and Sunset.
I've read that in the report too, and I'll leave that to staff.
What
but I
new
was-
traffic signal? Or is it just, you know, changing the timing on turns and stuff like that?
No, it's not a new signal at Front and Sunset, but what it would,
There's a new
And-
traffic signal intersection of Front and Sunset in the
right,
staff report.
that's probably a miswritten sentence there by accident. The Front and Sunset signalized intersection as it is today
Yeah.
is actually in the city's capital program for reconstructing to provide for increased capacity of each of the four legs by providing additional lanes northbound and southbound, which impact parking, as well as the east-west legs of extending the dedicated lanes of traffic coming through the intersection, which will allow the signal to operate more efficiently and effectively. So it's not a brand-new signal,
Okay.
but it's a reconstruction of that intersection to increase its capacity.
Sheldon, if I can, I also had a question about that
Sure.
specific intersection. Now, we're talking about the intersection with the library and Jack's
Correct.
and the Shell station and the law office, right? So I don't envision those moving. So are we talking about restricting parking on
That
the
is-
edges of that to
That would be
create
what would
turn
be
lanes?
required as a restriction on parking.
Okay.
There's already some areas that parking is restricted already, but we would have to work within the current paved section and so forth. It's not taking any of the property that would
Yeah,
impact
okay.
buildings or anything like that. We're not talking about that.
Right. And the other intersection that is one of the ones that you mentioned earlier is the intersection at Clark and Newport and Front.
Correct.
Same thing there?
Same thing there, working within the existing right-of-ways, not taking property. All the improvements at that intersection would either be on the leg of Clark, which is on the east side of the intersection, or possibly creating another way, another access point coming out on First Avenue. I believe that's the street right next to the community center.
Okay.
Okay, I just.
No, a
trying
point
to
well
figure
taken.
out- And
Point-
I'd still be curious to, we'll see it down the road, I guess, as to what parking, because it doesn't seem like there's much room in there to change turn lanes and stuff.
It's very tight,
Yeah.
and it is a challenging project.
Okay. One of the things for staff that we sort of blew right by was the wetland buffer. And I had a question in regards to stormwater runoff. The staff report says there's going to be about 1,500 square feet due to new outfall will be mitigated. The proposed outfall will convey stormwater from the bus yard into the buffer area, and that the municipal code allows stormwater runoff to be discharged into wetland buffers as long as it is treated.
Now I understand.
Where is this stormwater being treated?
So I have to admit that I had a lot of assistance from our environmental planner as far as the determination and review of that section. So I was relying on his review, and he's actually on vacation. I'm going to try my best to explain that. I guess I don't have a graphic. But basically, the treatment will be included as part of the civil's review, and just like with all the others, all the other stormwater in this project, it will all be treated on site, and then before it will be discharged.
Amy, is it, do you have any, is it going to be, do you know if it's going to be a percolation treatment, percolation pits that, or capabilities that will percolate the runoff before it enters? Wetland area?
Looks like just a pipe hitting a bunch of rocks.
And my recollection was that it was retention, the treatment was retention. Reading.
Steve, you can provide some more technical
So
information.
in the report on page 21 of 84, there is a site plan that shows the drainage into catch basins and a pipe that runs down southward to a treatment filtration type system that then discharges to the buffer wetland. And there's been a little bit of a change this in terms of this detail from staff recommendation, that the outfall pipe was shortened up so that there's a longer run before it reaches the wetland.
Okay, I guess I was just looking at this nice color drawing on page 19, and it's got new stormwater piping heading out into a bunch of rocks.
So there's two different, one is to slow the flow, and I think the rocks that you're identifying is to ensure that the flow is not such that it erodes. I'm not sure,
That to me means that there's an awful lot of water flowing if you're worried about rocks to disperse the flow.
well,
I'm just
it's,
wondering where it's getting treated.
so there's a,
On page 21,
New manhole?
the filter structure that's upstream on the pipeline of the manhole. And the manhole provides for flow control as well as the filter. And then the discharge, and standard discharge out of any stormwater pipe is a riprap rock area so that you're just not having a sheet flow over the surface.
Okay.
so there's a
Treated.
filter system under the road.
And then I guess, I'm beating a dead horse probably, but I got to tell you, when I looked at this drawing of the parking on Evans, I thought that'll work out pretty good, because I assumed falsely that there was going to be nice lines drawn where the kids would pull in and park even line and stuff like that. And now it looks like it's just going to be a pile of gravel with a concrete bumper that they're going to aim at haphazardly like kids will do.
Well, the bumpers at least provide some delineation of parking spaces as opposed to parallel parking that doesn't have any delineation.
Well, I was going to ask, because again, I had just assumed it was being blacktopped, and I would think that would be the smart thing to do, but costs money, and I understand that, and there's the percolation, but they've got wonderful new blacktop, I understand, because it's over there on one of the other roads in town that allows for percolation through the blacktop, too. I was going to ask about whether there's restriction, and because I see it, again, as a problem with the kids pulling in and at the end of school backing out, trying to do Y turns in there so that they can get out quicker. I don't think they're going to pull out and drive all the way to that turnaround. And I wondered if there was, again, when I thought it was being blacktopped, if there was a requirement to potentially make it require back-end parking. So in the morning, when they're not that enthusiastic about getting to school anyway, they would take a little bit longer to back in so that when the end of school is and they want to leave, they can get right out. I don't know about that. And then this turnaround up here, I don't know, I was just curious if there was a bigger turnaround for them or if that's just doing a real quick accelerate and crank the wheel over hard to the left to spin around and end up being a big berm eventually for the boys to get out to the shooting club.
They seem to manage now, and I know that the road gets wet, it gets muddy, it gets rutted from time to time, but I haven't seen the circle or the U-turn area at the T become a banked corner from burnouts on the way out. If you were to do back-end parking, it would have to be on the north side of the road so that it's on the exiting side. So then everybody would have to cross the road on their way to school.
No, because they could do the same thing they do now that you.
To get to their car, by saying.
Yeah, they would-
have to cross here instead of.
No, but they could drive up here in the morning, turn around, come down and back in to the south side of the road.
cross traffic.
No, what he's saying is they could go east, hit the turnaround, come back down, and then back into the north side of the
Or he
road.
said back into the south side of the road.
Well, you could you could make the 45-degree angle go the opposite direction. And then you could head east and back into a space. But when you get ready to leave, then I think you'd be more prone to
You
doing a
guys have thought a
sharp,
lot harder than we have, I know.
sharp exit.
I just, as long as we're talking about this, it seems to me that I heard a consensus of opinion from the public comments from Mr. Lynn and yourself that it would be best, long-term, in terms of maintenance and so on, if that were paved.
Well, from the school district's
That's,
point of view, we would not be interested in participating, but we would move forward with the paving of our own parking lot and allow the city to go ahead and provide a paved roadway to access the Sportsman's Club.
the parking lot being the one we've talked about,
Correct.
that is the future, possible future parking lot.
Which, if that became a condition, would move up on the schedule because we wouldn't be interested in paving a roadway.
Okay, interesting. Anything else?
That's all I've got.
Commissioner Morgan?
Question for Amy, if you could pull back up the, I think it's the south elevation, the two comparisons.
The south is the main entrance. Is that the elevation?
The overall south elevation, yeah, the comparison of the two. Yes. So, in the package, the revised elevation didn't have new trees in it. Are there new trees being added as part of the changes?
I think when we looked at this last time, they were showing, I'm sorry, I don't have the site plan. What was shown was almost like a foundation landscaping right up next to the gym wall. So because now what we have is a seating area at the wall, they're providing a pervious paver area. And then the trees are going to be located between basically the curb and what will be the future pervious area that's part of the seating area. So, and they will be in basically tree grates, like tree planters. So it's set up almost like in a more urban sidewalk setting.
And these are trees that were added to the plan subsequent to the initial
Exactly.
plan that we saw
Yeah.
before?
In the previous plan, the trees were actually closer to the gym wall. They were using it as their screening, and we said that wasn't acceptable. And so the trees moved closer to the street or the drop-off area.
Okay, so I guess in my mind, it's, I was disappointed in this slide as a presentation itself because we can look past it, but it's, in my mind, it's using the trees and the revised elevation to try to obscure the blank walls. We're aware of what they've done in terms of adding the seating area, but we're looking at the walls of the building, and to throw some trees in front of it in the revised elevation, to me, is just trying to mask something there that they didn't have to do, because in the package, the trees weren't there. And it would have, to me, but it's very frustrating to see something like put up there, it's like a smoke screen in a way. So, not that it was your doing or anything, because you didn't create the graphic, but it should have just been shown both ways without trees. I think.
And Amy, are those deciduous or conifers?
Deciduous.
They're deciduous.
So,
They're almost like street trees.
so 4 or 5 months out of the year, they're not going to have leaves. So,
Chances are.
Thank you.
And just so, and I appreciate you calling that out. I didn't even realize, I actually asked them for a clearer version of the graphics for this presentation. So whatever I received, I just included in my report or in my slides.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
anything else?
One more question regarding the circulation, and there was a I think Sheldon, during your comments about some issues backing up onto Evans Street because of some maybe drop-off challenges in the internal circulation. Can you explain a little bit more about what the mitigation is for that? Because we have a lot of activity going on over on Evans Street, and anything we can do to minimize the impact that's going to happen if we start queuing up back on the street as they're trying to get back into the school, that starts to become, and a lot of cars are idling out there, challenging, I think.
Actually, I'm going to have either Jeff Schramm of 10W or Steve Crawford, because a lot of that has to do with the internal controls on the school district property to help manage the flow of the parent and students and buses and all of that together.
Yeah, we did have a lot of conversation about this during the last meeting, about the circulation, about some of the challenges that was creating. So it sounds like we still are working on that.
So there's been some concern that parents who are supposed to drop off in the front of the building and exit back out through the traffic light might find coming in on Evans in through past the loading dock and down past here to access that an attractive alternative. So what we've talked about is the fact that there's going to be a gate back here. We're showing a gate at this point, and there's the potential to add a gate at this point, so that basically our traffic in these areas are staff for parking, and buses enter on Evans and come down and drop off both middle and high school students before they exit back out at the traffic light. So the control for those parents is gate at this point, which basically precludes anybody accessing the area and coming back around the east side of the building. And that gate would also preclude, or it would make it very frustrating if some parent decided to leave here and instead of going out at the traffic light, go back around this way and find that it's blocked and have to turn around and come back. I suppose we could put another gate here if we had to, but I think that what would be found quickly is that exiting back out through the traffic light is a more expedient exit than if you were to try and go back out and exit at Evans, which is not a signal controlled intersection. So basically the control is gates.
So the gates would be closed as needed? They would be automated gates with card keys? What's the thinking are they there just as mitigation as necessary, or how would they function? Because if you close the gates, then the staff's going to have the same challenge trying to get to the parking.
Some of the staff would access through Evans, other staff here. If it was determined that that was a problem and the gates needed to be closed, then the staff that park on the eastern side of the building would enter at the traffic light and come back around to the east side of the building.
Okay. So those gates are going to be installed as part of the project?
We're going to install the gates, and the closure and or open time periods would be determined by practice.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Brennan, Commissioner Silva, Commissioner President. The questions that I had, clarifications have all been addressed. But I'm going to venture out on a limb here and recognize that I'm about to comment on something that this Development Commission simply is going to make I'm going to make an observation for what it's worth. I attended 2 weeks ago. I attended an all-day sustainability summit at Issaquah High School. That was one of the most impressive things that I've participated in a long time, and it was primarily students from Issaquah School District high schools and middle schools, and businesses that participated in this and talked about programs, measurement of success, goals, definable contributions, and so on to the objective of increasing sustainability of the individual schools and the school system at whole. And there were some marvelous ideas, including some programs that are already in effect. There was nothing mentioned about vehicles, about a concerted effort to address the increasing number of private vehicles that are being used to bring students to school, whether they're driven by the students or by parents of the students or by somebody else who's picking them up and dropping off. And I personally think that's there's a very significant opportunity for the Issaquah School District, which is recognized as a leader in the Seattle metropolitan area, to take a real serious look at a system-wide effort to educate students and parents and administrators to identify specific goals for reducing car traffic in the schools. And it's not just for the environment, it's for ultimate expenses. So if you have to, pave less parking lots and things like that and accommodate cars and signals for the city and everything, I mean, we're talking 10, 15, 20 years from now, but there's so much emphasis on that subject in this area by so many different government and non-government entities that it just seems like a marvelous opportunity for the Issaquah School District to look at what is a significant problem that we're here tonight primarily talking about vehicle traffic. So I for what it's worth, and maybe I ought to attend a school district meeting and make that recommendation as a private citizen, but the issue does affect us. I mean, it's come up here and it's a significant part of our time, and in the spirit of cooperation and continuing the quality of life that we have here in Issaquah, I think it's an excellent opportunity that could be pursued by everybody involved, the city, the private sector, the school, and we could get on the map nationally by that kind of program, because I know this is happening everywhere where they're contending with more and more students that are driving to school instead of walking, biking, taking buses. So that's an unusual recommendation. I recognize that coming from the Development Commission, but I think it's an opportunity that really needs to be recognized. So with that, if there are no further comments, additions, questions, then we will move to, excuse me, the final step that we're going to take tonight, which is to proceed with a motion for recommendation to City Council regarding the Issaquah Middle School approval with conditions. Want to go for it? Go for it.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Development Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the master site plan and the site development permit for Issaquah Middle School, file numbers MSP 14-00002 and SDP 14-00001, as described and evaluated in the staff report dated February 18, 2015, the staff memo dated April 29, 2015, including Exhibits 1 through 24. Subject to the conditions as identified in the staff report, revised and added by the Development Commission in the February 19, 2015 recommendation, and as revised and added in the staff memo at this public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve. Is there any further discussion?
I guess like to point out in terms of the different aspects of it, the blank wall, I think they've done an adequate job of addressing the blank wall issues, one of the main questions we had.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the motion as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. There is
Mr. Chair, I move that the Development Commission direct the Development Services Department to revise the February 19, 2015 findings of fact and conclusions which affirm the Development Commission's decision to recommend to the City Council approval of the master site plan and site development permit for Issaquah Middle School, file numbers MSP 14-00002 and SDP 14-00001, the staff report dated February 18th, 2015, and this briefing memo dated April 29th, 2015 will serve as the findings of fact.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any new business that any commissioners wish to bring up? Staff? If not, the May 6th, meeting of the Issaquah Development Commission is adjourned.